Akabo Waakatu. This is Daku, and today I want to ask the question, who is the true Native American? Who is the true Native American? Now, over a year ago, I guess, it's been about a year or a little more than a year, I had a so-called YouTube account, and it got terminated. I guess I was too radical or whatever, so they had to shut me down. But we were revolutionary before YouTube was created, and we'll be revolutionary after it is in the memory banks of social America. Now, when I had that account, I asked the very same question. Many of my light-skinned Native American brothers and sisters, the ones that are almost white, got offended and commented, how dare I try to steal their Native American heritage. Well, they wanted to know the same thing that many of our people want to know today. When you say that you're sovereign, they want to know what paperwork you filed. They want to ask, okay, well, did you go downtown and get Mr. Charlie's permission to become sovereign? That's the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard. You don't file for freedom. You fight for freedom. But our Native American brothers and sisters that are very light, damn near white, believe somehow as if they've forgotten our history. And I'm not talking about all of our Native American brothers and sisters that are light, bright, and damn near white. I'm just talking about the ones that were responding to my question. They said, how dare you try to steal our Native American ancestry? Well, yesterday, we laid my Native American grandmother to rest. Now, many of you will say, and have said in the past, that, well, you might have had some Native American blood in you. It may have been 150, 200 years ago. And so now, that Native American blood that you once had running in your veins is obsolete. So I say this. Some of us have been away from the African continent for about 500 years. And no matter how many years have passed, no matter how many times we've been mixed with other races, we're still called the so-called African American. We're still called African. We're still called black. No matter how many generations have passed, we're still black. So even if my Native American ancestry is 300, 400 years ago, the blood of my Native American ancestors still run through my veins. So that still makes me Native American, whether you like it or not, whether you approve of it or not, whether you can articulate how wrong I am, doesn't matter. But I don't have to go back 300 years. I don't have to go back 500 years or even 100 years. The picture that you're looking at today is my mother's mother. She just passed away. Now, I totally disagree with the fact that our people always run to our enemy for validation. It's so silly to me. If you have a tree in your front yard and you want to validate that it's a tree, you go downtown and fill out some paperwork, wait for the white man to get back in touch with you and validate the fact that you got a tree standing near your yard. Now, That seems very ridiculous, but that's about how it is. That's how we operate. That's how we relate to our enemy. That's how we relate to our oppressor. We see the tree with our own eyes. We can touch the tree. When we're trying to get to point A, from point A to point B, we have to go around the tree. Every evidence is that there's a tree. In the fall, you got to rake the damn leaves that fell from the tree. But you can't believe your eyes. You can't believe the touch. You can't believe in your own common sense. You have to go get validated by the enemy. In 2013, our so-called African American brothers and sisters, our black brothers and sisters, our Native American brothers and sisters still look to the enemy for validation. How dare you disrespect your ancestors and look to the enemy of the planet for any type of validation? You consider yourself Native, and yet you disrespect the ancestors the way you do. Well, I don't look for your validation. I don't need your validation. The picture that you see before you is my Native American grandmother. That makes me Native American. Whether you like it or not, whether you accept it or not, whether you approve of it or not, it is the fact that I am a black man, for sure. But I am a Native American. If you were native to England and then you moved to America, you still a goddamn Englishman. Don't give a fuck where you moved. Don't care how many generations have passed. You're an Englishman. And if you're white, you're proud of your heritage. You're a Polish American. You're a German American. You're an Italian American. Huh? But when it comes to us, a few generations pass and we don't know who the fuck we are. So, if you look at the so-called black Americans, they are the blackest of the black to the lightest of the light. They're so light that they could even pass for white. But it would be irresponsible of us to say that they are not black. But when we look at our Native American family, they seem to forget the fact that the reason why they're the lightest of the light is because our ancestors were raped and mixed with the enemy in one way or another. That's where you got your light pigmentation. But we'll still call you Native American. We're not going to disown you. Don't worry. We're not going to steal your heritage. We'll still permit and allow you to call yourself a Native American. But don't you dare tell us that we're not Native American, because we are, as your rapist forefather said, copper complected, just like the true Native American ancestors were. So if you got any questions, jot them down, respond. But it doesn't matter. I'm not seeking your approval. I'm not seeking the white man's approval. I know what I am. I'm a black man that is also Native American. This has been Daku Akabo Wa'akatu.